Hey guys, this is Benny Ricciardi with rotocurve.com, and I'm here with our NBA DraftKings video for Monday, Monday, November 9th. A couple things that we have going on today. It's a 7-game slate that we have. No games are really too crazy high scoring today. The one that is a little bit elevated is obviously the Golden State game, as it's going to be all season long. But all the games are pretty much in a pretty solid range that we can look at. There is some injury news that's going to be important tonight, so I wanted to start with that. Chris Paul was banged up and missed the last game, so he could be out again today. If he's out, Austin Rivers started for him last time. I know Rivers is min-priced, but he didn't really do all that much. He's not somebody who I think has a huge upside. Where I do think that the bump is going to go to is to a guy like Blake Griffin, who we'll get into in a little bit. Next guy I want to talk about, DeMarcus Cousins. Cousins is supposed to be making his return today. So that's going to take some of the guys that people have been using at the min price, guys like Costa Koufis, guys like Willie Cauley-Stein, probably going to be getting a tick down with him back in the lineup. It also gets rid of that narrative of the fact that every time, we have Boogie Cousins out, Rudy Gay is able to go off. Gay really hasn't done an absolute ton with the extra usage, the extra shots, that he has seen with Cousins out. So I don't really think that that's something that, we have to keep chasing at this point. With Cousins coming back, I definitely think it's going to tick Rudy Gay down a little bit. We also have Darren Collison out for the Sacramento Kings, and this one I think is a lot more interesting. We'll talk about Rajon Rondo when we get into the point guard section, but last game with Collison out, Rondo saw extra minutes, wound up with a triple-double. That's something that we definitely have to consider because those extra minutes, that extra usage for Rondo, he is a guy that can fill up a stat sheet. So the more minutes you have him on the floor, the more random stats he's going to accumulate, and he could wind up with another big game here today. The last injury news I wanted everybody to be aware of is we still don't know whether Nikola Vucevic is going to be playing, the center for the Orlando Magic. With him out, we have been seeing Dwayne Dedmon put up some pretty solid numbers at a really cheap price. So he would still be in play if Vucevic is out. If Vucevic is back in, though, I do think it's a pretty good matchup for him against the Pacers. Centers have been doing very well against the Pacers so far this year. Vucevic's price is down a little bit. So if we hear that he's going to be okay and he's going to see his full minutes, I definitely think he could be a good option. But as of now, I'm considering him as somebody who's probably going to be out, and we'll kind of walk down that path accordingly. If he is in, obviously we're going to have to, redo a little bit of this analysis later on tonight. But as of now, it looks like he's going to be out. So we're going to go on that assumption when we talk about some of the plays today. At the point guard spot, I think that today's a day where you can go into that mid-tier and find some really good guys. Like we said, Rajon Rondo without Darren Collison is getting an absolute ton of minutes right now. His usage rate is up. He had a triple-double last game, and that's kind of what Rondo does. If you put him on the court for enough minutes, he's a decent rebounder for a point guard. He does always rack up a lot of assists. He never really looks for a shot, so he's not someone who's going to put up 30 real-life points for you most nights. But he can get you a few steals. He might even block a shot or two. He can get you about 6 to 10 rebounds. He can get you 10 assists. He can wind up with 6 to 10 points. And next thing you know, you got a big day out of him because he produced for you across the board. The added minutes that he's getting and the price of only $6,500 are still pretty low. So I do think that you can put him in your lineups today. He is one of the point guard options that I'm really looking at. And as we're going to discuss in a little bit, I think you have to try to save at the guard spots today because you're going to want to spend up at the forward positions and maybe even at the center if you're, a big fan of Cousins coming back off his injury. The other guy that's in that mid-tier that allows you to do that is George Hill from the Indiana Pacers. Hill, the reason I like Hill is CJ Miles is out. So Rodney Stuckey has been playing more shooting guard, which puts him and Hill on the court together. Hill has been playing absolutely huge minutes to start the year, and he has a big usage rate. Obviously, as the point guard, the ball's in his hand a lot, and he's a guy who can rebound. He can get some assists. He can score some points. He can get some steals. He can rack up fantasy points in a lot of ways. His price has come down a little bit. He's below $6,000 now. So I do think you're getting a pretty good value on using a guy like George Hill today. At the shooting guard spot, again, I think you can save. The one guy that you would want to pay up for, if you can afford to, is probably Jimmy Butler. And I'm not really going to argue with anybody. He's just a little bit too expensive for me today, especially when I can have guys like Kent Bazemore and Nick Stauskas who have huge upside. Both of these guys are below 5,000. Stauskas has been putting up about 30 points lately. Bazemore has actually put up some 30 and 40-point games lately. So at a price below 5,000, I definitely think those are two guys that are in play. There are some guys coming back and some rotation issues that are, going on with both of these teams. So just be aware and kind of take a look at it. But to me, it looks like you're still going to see Bazemore getting close to 30 minutes. And in 30 minutes, he's been able to put up 30 and 40 points lately. So I really like that. And Stauskas, I think, has a little bit of a safer floor. He's probably a lock for like 25. His upside is probably in the low 30s, though. I don't think he has a huge range today. I don't think he's going to get you 40 fantasy points. But he's going to be on the floor. He's going to be taking shots. I don't like his offense as much as I like the Atlanta offense, which is part of the reason why I think I have Bazemore a little bit higher. Now, moving on to the forward position, I think at forward you have to spend up today. There's two options at small forward. You got Paul George, who's been putting up 50, 60 fantasy points over his last couple games. He looks like he's all the way back here, guys. I mean, there is no reason why he shouldn't be, a slight tick below the guys like LeBron James and Kevin Durant. And I do mean a slight tick. I mean, he is really that good. When he is healthy, he's a top 15 player in the NBA, and it kind of looks like he's back to that full health. So I think that Paul George is somebody who I'd be looking to pay up for at 8,600. The only thing that might keep me from paying up from Paul George today is the fact that I could also pay up just as easily for Kawhi Leonard in the spot against Sacramento. Sacramento plays at a really fast pace. Kawhi Leonard is a guy who gets probably as much, if not more time than anybody else on that Spurs team on the floor. And he's been putting up some really good numbers with it. He's a $500 discount at 8,100 to Paul George. And I really think at the small forward spot today, you need to roll one of those two guys out there because they're both in really good positions. They're both capable of 40, 50-point games. And at only $8,000 price range, I don't think either one of them is going to be too expensive. At power forward, I think it's basically a lock and load. Without Chris Paul, I think you have to put Blake Griffin in there. Blake is the guy who's been picking up the scoring punch. He's been doing a lot more. His usage rate is up. His shots are up. And he's also been rebounding more this year. And the knock on him in years past has been he's content to let DeAndre Jordan just grab 20, 25 rebounds a game and, not really get in there and mix it up. So you're not getting more than basically just the scoring stats out of him. Well, without Chris Paul, the scoring stats are up, and you're also getting more rebounding out of him because he's kind of, got to that point where he's starting to get back onto the offensive glass and, try to get some points that way. And he's also helping out on the defensive end, which I think he's going to need to do in this game as well in order to, help the Clippers, especially with no Chris Paul in there. So for me, Blake Griffin is pretty much the one stud that I think I have to have in my lineup. I'm paying up for him, starting my lineup there, paying up at the forward spot and trying to go cheap at the guard spots. Now, there are a lot of options at center from the top end all the way down. Obviously, if Vucevic is out, I think you can look at a guy like Dedmon. If Vucevic is in, though, and it says that he's going to play a lot, I don't think his price is too expensive in the $7,000 range against a team that struggles against centers. So I do like centers, taking centers on the Orlando team to go up and play against them. So what I think that we're going to do here is if Vucevic is in, I think Vucevic makes a good play today. If Vucevic is not in today, I think you probably want to look at Dedmon. I think that he's somebody who you can roll into your rosters. DeMarcus Cousins is coming back, so I think Cousins is somebody who you can consider as well. Not a horrible, option ever, but he is a little bit pricey. I am a little bit concerned about the injury and if he's going to get a full allotment of minutes. So I don't know if I'm going to be rolling him today, but I do think that he's somebody I need to, obviously let you guys know that he's coming back and, is always an option when he's playing. Now, I do think we can find some value in that mid-range. If you look at some of the rookies, guys like Okafor and Towns, they're a little bit cheaper than some of the top-end options, and they've been putting up some pretty good numbers. Towns has actually seen his price rise quite a bit. Okafor's price has been slow to rise, mostly because all he's doing at this point is scoring. Not that that's a bad thing, but you would have expected maybe like 7, 8 rebounds out of a guy like this on a daily basis, and I think he's averaging closer to 5 or 6. You really want to see him get more involved on the rebounding, both on the offensive and defensive end. But this is a guy who can score. He's a load in the post. He gets good position. He takes good shots. He has, soft touch with both hands around the basket. So I think at 6,300, you're still getting a pretty good deal on him. I think there's a very good chance that he gets you that 30 points, which makes him solid value for a cash game. I think his upside is a little bit limited in cap, though. I don't see him going for like 45 fantasy points, mostly because he doesn't get a ton of block shots and he doesn't have a ton of rebounds and he doesn't really rack up a ton of assists. So for the most part, he'll give you a couple in each category and about 20 to 25 points in the scoring category. And that's usually how he winds up making value on the day. Unless I see him start doing some other things, I don't think I can really say he has a huge upside. But I do think he's pretty solid for cash and a very good salary saver to help you fit in some of these other studs. Towns has been a little bit more of an upside guy, but he's also been a little bit more erratic. So I think if you could have the money to spend up, it's not a bad idea to put Towns in there as well. He's basically getting as many minutes as he can handle at the center spot for Minnesota. They're really giving him a chance, and he's been producing. He can step outside and hit a jump shot. He can rebound. He can defend. He's a pretty solid passer for a young big guy. So he has a lot of upside, a lot of things he can do to help his fantasy score. So like I said, I'm going to be spending up at the forward spot today, trying to save at the guard spot today, and then figuring out which centers I can fit in. There's a lot of guys on the range, guys that are real cheap like Dedmon, guys that are real expensive like Cousins, and guys like the rookies who we mentioned like Okafor and Towns that are right in the middle. So you have a lot of options when you're building your roster today, but I do think that the best values that you can find are in the guard spots today, and the guys who I think you have to pay up for because they could have a big game are in the forward spots. So that's how I'm going to be building my lineups today. As always, we have a 7-game slate. There's a lot of money out there to be won, so good luck tonight, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to pop over to the NBA forum over on rotocurve.com or to hop into the chat. There's always people there building lineups and, a lot of guys in the community. Everyone's always willing to help out, answer some questions, and have some healthy debate. So thank you very much for joining us here at rotocurve.com. And as always, stay classy, DFS.